This is Our Rough Draft, a podcast, real talk for real relationships.
Welcome to Our Rough Draft, where we share real stories from marriage, work, life, and the adventures along the way. We'll laugh, maybe get real, and hopefully help you spark some new conversations in your own life.
I'm Denise, the wild, emotional one who loves words and big ideas.
And I'm Tim. I'm the practical level one who fixes what she dreams of.
And this is Our Rough Draft, where we share the stories we're still living. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Our Rough Draft.
Welcome.
So this week, we're talking about a big topic. Outrage.
Outrage!
So we got to Outrage. I got to Outrage because I was listening to... Oh, I just jumped right in. Hi. Hi, how are you? Good. We have cornbread cooking, so we're like on a time schedule, but
Drive here.
You got to work from home this week. That was super fun. I felt super aware of how much time I waste.
I kind of did too, because I definitely am an in-office person.
Yeah.
I've realized. I love the convenience of working from home. I like being able to, when he starts games again, being able to, easily go to a game. And
Interesting.
yeah, so it felt weird to work from home. I definitely didn't feel as productive.
Interesting. Yeah, I just feel like, I'm still in summer mode, so I'm like full summer mode. Like I watch the tour and I do some crafts and I do some writing and
not wasting time. It's not
it's all choices, but it's very much a life of leisure. I'm like, ooh, okay. Yeah, it's okay. It was nice to see you though. And it's nice to not have the commute, I think is the best part. But it doesn't mean we ate any better or planned our time any better. It was still hot and let's go get a pizza.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we still kind of felt stuck to our normal routine.
Yeah.
So
I would like in the future to have a better summer eating routine.
Yeah. We have to figure out a way to make dinner that doesn't feel like it's oppressive in the heat, I think.
Well, and I think for me, I get hotter as the day goes on. And so by the time it's like dinner time, I'm like, I'm spent.
Yeah.
So it needs to be almost like made earlier in the day, easier to put together.
Well, and I think lighter also.
For sure.
Like, I don't know that I'm looking for, when it's 110 degrees outside, I'm not sure I'm looking for like big meat and potatoes.
No, but I'm totally scared of salad right now.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
The salad is not, we had a whole conversation about that on our team meeting today.
I imagine you guys are having a hard time.
Yeah. Salad is not the thing.
That's bad for California. Okay. So now, hi.
Anyway, outrage.
I was really excited. We were going to record last night, but I asked Mason if he wanted to play a game and he said yes. So the podcast pushed.
You folded up the tent.
Yeah. I was like, nope, I'm absolutely playing a game.
You got to take that family time and get it.
Yeah. So what we were talking about is this idea of outrage, and where it came from was I didn't listen to the podcast. I heard about a podcast where the liberal hosts went off on homeschooling and quote unquote crazy Christians. And that crazy Christian terminology comes from the West Wing. And that was a long time ago, but I think it's been used a lot since then. But it was this whole idea that homeschooling people are ruining the country and they're all crazy Christians.
On the podcast, not on the West Wing.
Correct.
just clarify.
On the West Wing, they were talking about like these crazy Christians that were doing harm to other people.
Yeah.
And that was where I read about this podcast. I should probably listen to it. And I felt upset because as a public school educator, I am pro school. And I don't think homeschooling's hurting us. So the outrage felt misplaced. I wonder if the women doing the podcast are educators at all. I should have probably looked this up. Oh, well, I'll get there.
Good job doing your research before we got on this podcast.
Oh, well. But like as an educator, I feel like I can have a say about education. Yeah. I mean, everybody can have a say about whatever they want, but I feel like I have a more grounded place to speak about education because that is my field. Yeah, and I don't think that homeschooling's hurting us. And I have a lot of friends who homeschool their children and are doing an excellent job. Yes, they have faith, and faith is a part of why they've decided to homeschool. But I think of this concept of crazy Christians as people who are taking the Bible and using it in a way that produces harm to other people. That's where it came from West Wing. And I don't see the harm in homeschooling, because then you go to the stats and kids who are going to college after being homeschooled are succeeding. Kids who find a career or go into entrepreneurship after homeschooling are succeeding. And I also know that it isn't just people of strong faith who are doing homeschooling. There are people with diseases and illnesses that are homeschooling their kids so they can spend time with their kids. There are young athletes who are using homeschooling as a way to be able to do their sport. And there's so many more ways that you can homeschool now where it isn't, I'm not going to teach you about this, this, and this. I'm going to make sure you have a well-rounded education. Homeschool kids have to take the proficiency tests that are offered in each state, and homeschool kids do better on those than like our general population. I always think it's interesting that we talk about education the same way we talk about prisons. But that's an aside that we could get to another day. So anyway, I bring it up not to have a conversation about is homeschooling right? Is the term crazy Christian okay? But just this idea that people trade on outrage, and whether it's for clicks or likes or followership or whatever, the more outraged you can be, it's almost like the more people you get to pay attention. And so then I was wondering about like, what is outrage? What harm is it doing? Can we sustain the outrage? Are we outraged about the right things? Right? Like all of that. So all that to say, can you think of a time where you were outraged by something, and how, like, conceptualize that for us? Like, what is something you're outraged about?
I think about, I don't know why I always come back to the military, but I feel like some of my strongest emotions have happened, experiences. And I think there was one time in particular when when I gave cookies or whatever it was to that small little,
No.
you know those.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So very quickly, we were out on a mission and we were stopped at some intersection, and a group of kids gathered around us, and there was this one girl that was kind of shy, and she stood off to the side, like she wasn't clamoring like all the other kids were. And so I grabbed I think whatever MRE I was eating that day, I had like the little cookies, like a little sugar cookie packet or whatever. And so I grabbed that vehicle and I gave them to her. She went running off and across this kind of bare dirt parking lot and I watched her go, and she ran over to this older man. I assume a father figure, maybe a father, maybe an uncle. I don't know who it was in the broader family, but she ran over to him and he started hitting her because she showed him, and he was he was just upset that she had, interacted with us, had taken something from me. So I felt all kinds of outrage. Like I felt a bunch of different emotions from that, and proceeded to run over his face. And I mean, he didn't understand the word I was saying. I was yelling and screaming at him not to hit her, that, don't take it out on her. So outrage, I think, was pretty strong in that scenario. But I think what I was really feeling when you break outrage down, um, because we had this conversation, like, what is outrage? And I feel like outrage is a big bucket that houses a bunch of smaller buckets. What are you really truly feeling in this moment
Yeah.
about this particular thing? Are you feeling fear, embarrassment, shame, insecurity? Like what's coming out right now? And I think
Injustice.
injustice. Yeah. I mean, you could go down the road, right? Because to me, outrage is the reaction to the situation, but it's you're feeling something that's leading to that. And what I was feeling that moment was shame that I had, caused this girl to get hit by
Yeah.
her father figure. And I was feeling embarrassment that, we had come in and fucked up the, the society the way that we have. And I was feeling, anger of a traditional patriarchy stereotype in that society where, it's fine to hit your daughter. It's
Well, and
fine to hit
also,
your wife also.
and I'm probably also sad.
And sad. I was really sad for the girl. I mean, this was the environment that she was in. Yeah. So there's just all these different things wrapped up in.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's great, because I think it is about emotion. And I think one of the things that we as a society don't do enough of is ask more questions, get curious about that, and say, why are you outraged? So if I had the opportunity to talk to these podcast women, that's the question I would want to ask. Like, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Like, what are you feeling that has you so outraged about homeschooling?
Well, I think that would be a really interesting one to explore, because I think as you're talking about it, I think about my own thoughts and feelings about homeschooling. And again, this podcast isn't about homeschooling, but I think about when you start breaking down the outrage, I think there's a lot of stereotypes about homeschooling. There's a lot of misconceptions about what it looks like. And I don't necessarily chosen to homeschool our kids. Even
Right.
if I was home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I just wouldn't have done that. But that's beside the point. But you can say they're not being socialized. They're not learning the right things. We're putting these, repressed kids out into the world after they finish, and all kinds of different things. But in reality, again, break down your outrage.
And find out if any of that's really true. Because from my experience, none of that's true. Yeah.
Totally. But again, going back to outrage, like there's something else there. There's fear about that, what that does to the child, or there's shame that I can't be at home 24 hours.
So
a
I
day,
think that
can't homeschool my own kids,
So I think that's an interesting piece to it. So I'm reading Yesteryear right now. It's all the rage right now. And it's this trad wife influencer who gets somehow taken or magically goes to 1885. And everything that she's put on as a trad wife, with her multitudes of people who work for her, camera people and script people and makeup people, those people aren't there anymore. And she's having to live the traditional life. And she talks about the angry woman. So when she was in real time and she would blog or post about her trad life, the angry woman, which I assume looks like somebody like me, is disregarding what she has to say or will comment on her posts. And the idea in the book is both of them are they worry too much about what the other one thinks. So this whole idea of the angry woman, the podcast ladies are upset maybe because they can't do or don't want to do that more traditional role. And the more traditional are somehow trying to prove that their way is better, right? So it's like all in the eyes of the other one. So I think about that in this conversation too is really interesting, because the people I know on the other side of that, right? My friends who homeschool and are Christian authors and all of that, they're not concerned necessarily with the angry woman or the other side. They're just doing what they're doing to like have the best life they can have. And I think about this one woman who we've talked a lot about it, and it kind of goes alongside my experience up in Washington of like, she got to a certain point, she was like, I'm tapped out on math. Like, I can't teach any more math. So now she partners with a homeschool network and her kids go and get math somewhere else. And I just wonder if people know that that happens, right? Like that whole piece of like, just dig in. Like, you don't have to know everything, but ask one question. But back to this idea of outrage and it having a bunch of different emotions in it. I think about people will say right now, like, everybody's outraged all the time. And can we sustain outrage? And are we outraged about the right things? And I think the answer to that is, of course we can, because our emotions are always going to be our emotions. We will always have emotions. You don't run out of emotions. Like, you might get tired and certain emotions come out more, right? But like, emotions are going to be there. And so if the outcome is outrage instead of curiosity, then we're always going to be in this loop.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. What drives you to outrage versus curiosity? And maybe that has to do with your stamina or your circumstances. I mean, it maybe when it doesn't touch a nerve of some sort, you can be more curious.
Yeah.
Versus when it feels like a personal thing that you have either personal experience with, or when, again, one of those emotions comes out, shame, fear, whatever the thing may be, when it touches you personally, then it's easier to go to outrage versus to go to curiosity about whatever that thing is.
Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting.
Yeah.
So I think about things to be outraged about, and I'm outraged by situations. Yes, I'm outraged by some people. I'm outraged about this like Hegseth testosterone thing, because thinking that our soldiers need more testosterone to be able to do their jobs is so limiting. So then I go to, what are my emotions about that? Is I'm just like so disappointed that we got to this place. And my disappointment then creates outrage in the system. And I want to fix the system. And I don't know. Like, I know that I can be a little woo. A little woo-woo. Just one woo. I'm just one woo.
Sometimes two.
But like, the system created him. Maybe he has bad things in him. Maybe he's a bad human. But when we start to dehumanize the individuals doing the work of the system, then I think I feel like if that person went away, it would be fixed. But that's not true. The system is the problem. And so if I can have my anger and my disappointment go to the system, then I feel like I have somewhere to go with it. I can work on the system. I can contribute to the system. I can't change a person.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really powerful point, because I think you're right. It's what we're talking about now is not it isn't an individual, although they're the faces that we see on the news. here on, it is a system.
Mhm.
It is a system-wide issue. And I think I think when I feel outrage, I tend to do it in times and spaces, I think, where I feel powerless,
Yeah.
where I feel like the only thing I can be right now is outraged because I am so mad, so whatever, but I don't have a place to put that. I'm powerless to change the circumstance, the system, the person, the whatever it might be. And so it's this kind of internal bubbling, right? Because if I had power in that situation, if I had an alternative, I could go act on that.
Yeah.
If I don't act on that, that's my own damn fault.
Right.
But I could go act on that. I could change the situation, change the system, change whatever it might be. So I think for me, it has a connection back to power. And when I think about changing people that I'm outraged with, I can't do anything about that because my approach would be to use logic and facts and conversation to try and change somebody's opinion. And it's not always going to work
Mm-mm.
because it isn't necessarily about those things. It is about a system that's put us in the position we're in. It's created these people that have been successful up to this point. So I shouldn't be outraged about that. I should be outraged about like what you're talking about with the system. How do you change the thing that produced this?
Yeah, which is so interesting because like right now, the systems pushing our outrage buttons left, right, and center. How do we get the populace to be more outraged? But is that to feel powerless?
Mm-hmm.
Which, gosh, that's dark.
You're fine. You're fine with the population that's outraged because they're powerless to do anything, and that's okay for you. So, yeah, I can stoke all the outrage I want, or unintentionally create outrage because it doesn't matter. It doesn't lead to anything.
That's horrible.
There's a very powerful line in Rage Against the Machine song. It's very in line with what we're talking about right now.
Would you like to quote it?
Well, I mean, the quote is basically, I don't want the G rides. I want the machines that are making them.
So thinking about all of this in a what can you do about it kind of way, I go to the book. The Brene book, the book, Atlas of the Heart, to look at these kind of different emotions that make up outrage or can lead to outrage. And the one I keep going back to is like dehumanize. Like if I can't see your humanity, I can't have compassion. And this harkens back. This is such a long time conversation we've been having. I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh. So how many years ago was that? Because I wanted to hear the other side. Mm-hmm. So I could develop compassion for the other side of the story. So I've been doing this a long time. Those women on the podcast, if they could humanize the moms who are homeschooling to get to a point where you can ask them a question, then you're engaged. And so to your point, you're saying powerless to have the conversations because you might not change their minds. But what about just being in the conversation? Just for a minute, suspending the idea that we have to be right and that our side is right, and just engaging in the conversation to learn more. There's a lot of dogs at my feet right now. Everything keeps moving. But I think that's the place you go. So there's so much research and so much out there about how do you build better relationships with the people in your life, right? Like even here in the book, she has a little chart of the Gottman's 4 horsemen, which is one of my favorite things in the whole world. And that applies to relationships that you're in, but also relationships that you're not in. Because in theory, we could be in a relationship with any other human. And if what we jump to is making them less than, criticizing, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling, if we use those always with people, then you don't have the opportunity to build a relationship.
Yeah. I think contempt is an interesting word because I think that's the word we were looking for last night when we were having a conversation. I
Yeah.
think contempt is a very focused word that
It's really hard to come back from.
I think so. Like, I can dislike you, but I might be able to come back from it. Like we've talked before about my first impressions of people are always wrong.
Yes.
So I dislike you for whatever reason because I'm dumb. And then they, come back from that once I learn more. I mean, which goes to your point. It speaks to your point of if you can just have a conversation, if you can get to know someone, do you change your opinion? It doesn't have to be from dislike to like or love, but you at least now are much more informed. But I think once contempt forms, then that's hard because you're coming from a place of not only do I not to engage with you.
Well, it's that idea of I want bad things to happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Like, I'm
horrible.
fine if you go away.
Yeah. And I think we've gotten there with people on both sides right now. Like the amount of vitriol,
Yeah, good job.
thanks, that people have for people on either side of the aisle, whether that is in politics or sport,
Yeah.
right? Like we just like demonize the other side versus like trying to find that like underlying humanity.
Yeah.
It's a really sad and scary place. Because as you try and like raise kids to have high expectations for people in their life, to treat them well, then when you have people who don't treat them well, you want them to hold a boundary that they don't get hurt without it turning to contempt.
Yeah. Yeah. Some point as well, because how do you do that? That creates the boundary, doesn't turn into a personal attack, doesn't turn into contempt, doesn't turn into, I mean, you can take that to an extreme, right? Doesn't turn into violence against you, doesn't turn into hate crimes, doesn't turn into whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because you can kind of see the path that gets there. And I think that path is a lot of times created in an echo chamber because you don't want to have the conversation, because you don't want to learn more about those people, that person, that group, that religion, that political party, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And I think about, I don't know if we talked about it on here, but I've talked about it at length lately, is like the bro culture and the contempt for women. Like it truly like power over dynamics. And if you try and speak up, if you try, like, then literally we want to smack you down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. This is a big topic.
Outrage is a big word.
It's is
a big, powerful feeling type of word.
Well, and I just wonder, like, if going back to one of my original questions of like, what should we be outraged about? And what am I really asking there is, what should we be working towards fixing? Because I think that's what I'm actually trying to say. Like, if I'm outraged about something, how do I want to change it so that I'm no longer outraged about it? What we go to very often is this idea of dehumanization, like, let's get rid of those people, like, let's just get rid of them, versus I want to make sure that my tax dollars are working well for the public schools. So can I work towards homeschooling coming out of a separate budget and public schools still getting the funding they need, versus just being outraged that homeschooling might be taking away from public education? We're in Arizona. It probably is. Maybe the new law will help. But like, what is that thing? If you can't get along with the people, Can you look at the system and figure out what you want to change?
I think that's key. I think because just to back up for a second, I think there's legitimate times and places to be outraged.
I don't disagree.
I think that outrage is necessary in some cases. Simply because I think those cases are so egregious that you have to feel strong feelings. And if you don't feel strong feelings, I kind of worry about you.
Yeah.
But to your point, I think that it's an interesting concept to think about. Am I outraged at a person, or am I outraged at a system, like you were saying earlier? And if you dug a little deeper, you might find that it actually is the system. And then you have a little bit of a focus for your outrage. But I think that's where it stops, unfortunately, because I think as a people, sometimes we're lazy. Like, it's easier to sit here with my outrage and be outraged and feel like I'm moral playing because I'm demonstrating outrage for this thing that isn't right in my mind.
Right.
But instead of going out and actually working toward changing that system, can I change the public school funding model? Can I work for change in that aspect so that homeschooling doesn't impact the budget that my kids, teachers, and school systems are pulling from? That's
Right.
how it becomes personal for me. And yes, you probably can, but that requires you to be involved. It requires effort.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of places where you can get involved.
Yeah.
And that's something that over time I've had outrage about, is especially with politics. Like, I want to be able to do something, not just give money.
Yeah.
And I get so tired of getting emails and texts that say, just give me $5 today, just do this. Well, hold on. Like, how about we have a conversation about where my $5 is going? And are you working on the things that my $5 should be working on?
Well, and what's interesting about those emails and those text messages?
Tell me.
They start off by stoking your outrage, by provoking you to feel mad or something. Every text that I've received, every political text, regardless of the side that it's from, has been, they're doing X, Y, Z. Can you believe it? And the language in those text messages is becoming more incendiary.
Yeah.
Because I want you to be mad, and then I'm telling you what you can do about it. But what you can do about it is to give me $5 now before midnight in our fundraising campaign so that I can create an ad that informs everybody about the bad shit that's going on.
Right.
Like,
that doesn't help me.
That does not make me feel like I have power in this situation. In fact, it just continues to make me feel powerless.
Right. And yeah, and there's not a lot of room for the conversation, which takes me to an outrage that happened in our neighborhood. So I know this is going to sound like we are so privileged, and we are. And there was outrage. We have a homeowners association, and there's a new law about parking, and we voted, and the homeowners association can talk about the rules around parking. So they put together this whole schema for parking, and they emailed it out to all of us, and it was outrageous. It was not okay. Like, you have to park in your garage first. You can't park even on your driveway. You can't have overnight cars on the street. Anybody who visits for more than 4 hours has to register their car. Like, outrageousness. So as a community, we all showed up at the meeting, literally all. Like, everyone in the community showed up at that clubhouse, standing room only. We were on the outside, like, you couldn't even get in, and to have our voices heard. And I think that worked really well. People went, they voiced their problems. The people listened. They said, we're not going to do it. We're taking this off the table. We will start again from zero. And then it kept going for hours, which was crazy to me. Like, they owned it. They took accountability, and they said, well, maybe they didn't take accountability.
I don't think they took accountability. I think they made excuses.
Okay, so I think that might be part of the problem.
The first tactic was to make excuses.
Okay. Regardless, we got what we wanted.
Yeah.
And then people just kept being outraged about it because they wanted their outrage on record. And it wasn't enough to say, we screwed up, we stop. We're not doing it. It was, you should resign. I think that comes from us not having the way to do anything else in the rest of our lives where we feel outrage. This was the only place where we could actually make something happen.
I think that might be true. I mean, I think that this was an example of people demonstrating their outrage and through their voices being able to change the outcome in their favor.
Yeah.
The vast majority, I would say 99% of the people that were there supported not doing this messed up thing. And so I think they felt like I have a venue. I can go to this meeting, this board meeting. I can voice my opinion, make my outrage heard, and I can steer the decision in a different direction. That doesn't work in a lot of cases. I'm outraged by
at work.
I was outraged at work
Yeah.
when the whole thing, happened with the return to office mandate, but I couldn't march into anybody's office. I couldn't express that outrage. I felt powerless. It was, this is being done to me and there's no outlet for my outrage. And so I just have to go away and I have to somehow find a way to tamp that down.
Yeah.
And I think it has, not sociologist by any means, but I think some of it has to do with size of the thing. And I think in this case, it had a finite boundary. It had a local location. It had a date and a time and a venue. And like there was a very structured thing here that happened, expressed their outrage, and they've passed that. I can't like even organized marches against, political things. I'm a face in a crowd and I'm not even speaking to the people that are creating the situation that I'm in. So even in doing that, what feels like activity is actually still a demonstration of.
Yeah, I would say two things. One, the piling on, I think, is hard. If I'm feeling outraged about one thing and then I'm feeling outraged about another and then a third, and I have nowhere to put my voice in any of those, creates an ongoing problem. But I also think in community, some of it can be solved. So maybe you're not solving the problem, but you are being heard. You are communicating with others that see you and appreciate, gosh, yeah, I feel that way too.
Is it like access to power, access to decision makers, access to?
I don't even know if we can solve for that, right? Like we're a giant society, but is the answer actually in community and in relationship, whether that is with people who you can talk about things with, like actual conversations about, I'm frustrated with this because of that. What is your side? And you can actually have a conversation about it if you agree or don't agree, right? Just to like get it out and to like frame your thinking, to have rich conversations about things. I think that's important as long as you stay in the like humanity side, like you're not demonizing the other side. Just think talking about things matters. And I think about going back to like raising kids in this kind of environment, letting them have a voice, letting them try on what they think they know, not just shutting them down, be like, no, that's not true. Like let them work through their thinking on it. And maybe they'll change their minds. Maybe they'll modify their thinking. Maybe you'll add on something to their thinking. But I think having real conversations about real topics is important.
Well, and I think the helping them understand the outrage, helping them dig deeper, like we've talked about. If outrage is a big, all, like, what are you really feeling? Like, what is this thing, this situation, this person, this whatever making you feel? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And then let's figure out if there is a solution to that. Because I think that outrage, again, it goes back to power. I think if I feel powerless in this situation and I'm outraged about it, if you can help me understand what what the actual emotion is there, then maybe I'm not so powerless. Maybe I have the power to change something.
Well, and maybe it isn't about power. Maybe it's about being heard. Maybe it isn't changing it. Maybe it is just being on record about it and talking it through. Right. Like I'm trying to think of an example. One we've talked about on here quite a bit. And I think like baseball coaches, like sometimes I feel like baseball coaches make me outraged. Because, right, the whole thing of like, I won't talk to parents, only the kid can talk to me, blah, blah, blah. Fine. But when your kid is trying and needs support, then we should be able to do it together, right? So don't be so like rule focused that you can't engage with the human who wants to have a conversation.
Yeah. Well, and help me teach my child that they do have a voice,
like all of us together can talk.
Yeah, that they do have the ability to contribute to a conversation, because what you're doing right now is expecting them to be the one to come to you. And if they can't get it right, if they can't do it the way that you want them to, you're going to ignore it. If it's a great teaching moment, but you're taking that power away from me, and I don't trust you to do it the right way either. Like,
I think we had a better experience with volleyball in that I had a separate relationship with the coach, right? He was one of my students. So he and I could talk about coaching, not necessarily talk about my kid, but talk about coaching and talk about his approach. And what I loved is the nights that Mason would come home and be like, I just had a great conversation with Gary and Justin, and we talked about all these things. And like that is so like rewarding as a parent, that somebody who plays a role in your kid's life is willing to listen to them. Like we should all be listening to each other, but even more so, we should be listening to kids.
Yeah, totally agree.
Interesting. Well, that was a deep conversation. I don't know. Like, I think it's just about like asking people to go deeper into the things that they mention. Like the example I used with Mason last night was often during sports, people in our family will be outraged. And I need to do a better job of like not ignoring that and asking the question, are you upset at the way they're playing? Are you frustrated that you wasted time watching this game? Do you wish you had done something different? Like just find out more. Like, so I think that's the takeaway from all of this is like, how do we just ask more questions and stay curious with the people in our lives?
Yeah, agreed. How do you explore it a little bit? Don't just take it for what it knows, but actually dig into it a little bit deeper. And trying to figure out what's going on.
And if you don't know all the emotions and you don't know how to like, get to them, this really is the best book because it talks about emotions and connection and the language of human experience. So highly recommend it.
Hashtag
nerd alert.
Right.
Awesome. Anything else for this week?
No, I'm excited to eat cornbread and chili.
All right, go into the world less outraged.
Indeed.